Known for his impressive on-court skills, interesting personality, particular character, and some altercations as well, Stefanos Tsitsipas has been an established top player for a few years already. The Greek god, as he has been nicknamed, has managed to reach a level of consistency that not many have done. However, he's still lacking something. In spite of being the greatest Greek tennis player ever, he hasn't quite fulfilled the expectations people had of him. He made it all the way from being a top junior player to a top ATP player, but he still hasn't reached his goal. Why hasn't that incredible talent and great prospect had the success he was supposed to have? Stefanos Tsitsipas had his first contact with a racket at the age of 3. That's pretty much what one would expect, knowing that he's the son of a professional tennis player and a tennis coach. Julia, his mother, was once the #1 junior player in the world and later made it into the top 200 in the WTA rankings. His father, Apostolos, was a tennis instructor, so by the age of 6, Stefanos was already taking classes, and more impressively, he had already decided he would become a professional tennis player at the very young age of 9 years old. Since then, it was pure hard work, stepping on the court every single day. He started playing juniors in 2013 at just 14 years old. Since then, he started his climb up the junior rankings until he eventually reached the world #1 at that category in May 2016 after winning the famous Grade A Trofeo Bonfiglio tournament in Milan. Before that, he had already played all the junior Grand Slams the year prior in 2015 and had made 2 consecutive Orange Bowl U18 finals, losing them to Stefan Kozlov and Miomir Kecmanovic respectively. In 2016, however, he had much better results in the Grand Slams, making it as far as the semifinals in Wimbledon and the US Open, losing to 2 Canadians that might sound familiar, Denis Shapovalov and Felix Auger-Aliassime respectively. Before the end of that year in October, Stefanos was already making his first challenger finals in Morocco in back-to-back weeks. His first title of that category would eventually come in Genoa, Italy, almost a year later. In 2017, apart from winning his first challenger title, he played his first Grand Slam main draws at Roland Garros and Wimbledon. To wrap up a magnificent year, he became the first Greek player to reach the ATP Top 100 ever. He did so, making it to the semifinals of the ATP 250 in Antwerp, where he also recorded his first ever top 10 win against top-seeded David Goffin. 2018 was the year he established himself. He reached his first ever ATP final in Barcelona, an ATP 500. He was the first player of his country to do so in over 45 years. Eventually, he lost that match to the King of Clay, Rafael Nadal, who won his 11th title there, so nothing to be ashamed of. His run included some great wins, for instance, against Dominic Thiem, who would then beat him in a narrow 5-set encounter at the French Open's second round. His second final would come a few weeks after in Canada at a Masters 1000 event. Beating players the likes of Kevin Anderson, Alexander Zverev, and the one and only Novak Djokovic, Tsitsipas fell short once again in the final against the same opponent as in Barcelona, Nadal. His time would come though, as towards the end of the season, he won his first ATP title at the indoor hard courts in Stockholm, beating Ernest Gulbis in the final. A great milestone for his career. In the following weeks, he also won the next-gen ATP finals and was awarded the Most Improved Player of the Year award. In 2019, his performance kept getting better and his consistency improved. He started the year with a great semi-final run at the Australian Open where he lost to Nadal and then reached the Madrid final where he lost to Djokovic. While he didn't have any other outstanding results, he won 2 more ATP titles at the 250 events of Marseille and Estoril, and in the final week of the season, he stunned everybody by winning the ATP finals, beating Dominic Thiem in the final. 2020 was not a great year. He made the semifinals of the Roland Garros and won the title in Marseille again, but other than that, nothing too impressive. However, in 2021, he made some big steps forward by winning his first ATP Masters 1000 title in Monte Carlo and reaching his first Grand Slam final in Paris a few weeks later. Incredibly, he was a set away from winning it, being 2-0 up against Novak Djokovic. However, the Serb came back and snatched the title. The rest of the year was pretty average, with early exits at Wimbledon, the Olympics, and the US Open. Since then, Stefanos hasn't managed to make that step further he has always wished. He won another Masters 1000 in 2022, defending his Monte Carlo title, and made another Slam final in Australia 2023, losing to Djokovic in straight sets. He also reached 2 other Masters 1000 finals in 2022, in Rome and Cincinnati, losing to Djokovic and Coric respectively. While these are still some results most players only wish to have, not only did people expect more from the Greek, but the Greek also expected more from himself. So it is now time to answer the question, what has been stopping Stefanos Tsitsipas from taking the results a step further? There are a few reasons which might be interesting to analyze. Let's start with his technical limitations. Being a top player, of course, there are not many, but there's one in particular that everybody seems to be talking about. That is, of course, his one-handed backhand. While it looks aesthetically pleasing, it's also pleasing for the player at the other side of the net. It's easy to exploit, especially for big servers and those who have great net games. Especially in defense, Steph doesn't have the power and consistency required to battle with hard hitters which are taking on the tour. He lacks a bit of wrist movement, which makes him very vulnerable to power shots. While we have recently seen some signs of improvement, it had not improved much over the last few years. I'm sure that Steph and his team are fully aware of this though, and will continue to work to improve this aspect and solve the issue. Maybe by working on his slice, that might help him in defense, slowing down the pace and make him more consistent, or by trying to lean more on his forehand and try to play shorter points, not getting involved in long rallies, which does not seem to be the best strategy. Another reason why some people think Stefanos might not make it to the very top is because of his mentality. The truth is that we've always seen him very composed on the court, seemingly very focused. However, there have been some matches that he maybe should have won and slipped away from him. For example, the Roland Garros final in 2021. However, this has been improving in recent times, even though his present is not the best in that regard. Note that he rarely lost to lower-ranked opponents, but now he's losing some of those matches, making him more and more vulnerable. It's mainly against the top guys that he usually loses, though. This might well have to do with the pressure he has always carried of being part of the next generation. Him, as well as other guys, were all expected to take over. However, things took a different turn, and we still have Djokovic and Nadal in action. As years have passed by and new talents have emerged, he's definitely freeing up from that pressure. However, he now has the challenge of beating the new players, some of which he hasn't quite managed to do. He has 5 losses in 5 matches against Alcaraz, for instance. Still, he has learned from the Spaniard and now tries to enjoy himself more on the court as Alcaraz does. Apart from his on-court mentality, he also has a special character. If you follow him on social media, you will have noticed his tweets, which are somewhat rare. May the fact that he didn't have much social life during his childhood have had an impact on his personality? We don't really know. There's another issue that we can't ignore, which is his coaching team. Being coached by his father Apostolos ever since he started, things have taken on a strange dynamic. Being accused multiple times of cheating by receiving coaching, the relationship with Apostolos has seen some tense moments. He has asked him to leave, swore to him, and almost hit him once to his mother's discomfort at the ATP Cup a few years back. Surely, it must be very difficult for the player to have his parents on his team, but this is something Stefanos has been used to since he was a kid. Apparently, it's also difficult for his family to step aside, when this is what one would think the best decision would be. However, a few months back in 2023, he brought in Mark Philippoussis to take the main coach role. That, however, didn't last long, as results were not good enough and the relationship didn't seem to work. In consequence, Apostolos was firmly back, and results incredibly seemed to improve. Apparently, it's the emotional calm of having his family with him that works for Stefanos. It is totally understandable that family is very important for the Greek, as for instance, his most memorable moment was winning the Antwerp doubles title in 2023 with his brother Petros. But he should maybe remove his parents from the coaching team. Let's say not have a professional relationship with them anymore. They can travel with him, be in his box, but let someone else manage his life. That makes any sense? Apostolos and Julia are too involved, which might not be a good thing. He's been trying to find the ideal pieces for his team for at least a few months now, but apparently hasn't managed to do so yet. Finally, there's been one more controversy around Stefanos regarding his private life. He has been dating WTA player Paula Badosa, and as his performances seem to dip since they made their relationship official, everyone started pointing at her as the cause of the Greek's downfall. However, if anything, the appearance of Paula in his life might be something good, not only because she makes him happy, but for multiple other reasons. There's no one who can understand a tennis player better than another tennis player, so their mutual emotional support will most likely be great for both. Also, she might help him have a more distressed relationship with his family, family, or why not, be away from them a bit more. Has he found the love of his life? Well, it does seem like it, but only time will tell. So what will the future hold for Stefanos Tsitsipas? That's impossible to know. Hopefully he manages to overcome the difficulties and come back to his best level. If that happens, he will most likely be back in contention for the biggest titles, and why not, accomplishing his dream of becoming the world #1. If you've made it to this point and enjoyed the video, don't forget to subscribe so as not to miss any of the upcoming ones. I'll catch you in the next few days for a new one.